Hello, everybody, and welcome to our, what is this, fourth edition of Sideline to Speedway Motorsports side of things. I am your host, once again, Mekhi Winfrey, joined by Parker Merrey. Um, lots to cover between both F1 and NASCAR this weekend. There's some inter-team drama on both sides of the spectrum from this weekend. Kind of, kind of winners who are trying to make a championship push right now from one side and another. So lots to cover, lots to talk about. But before we get into all that, Parker, how you feeling? How you doing? How'd you take this past race weekend?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. We had NASCAR's been surprisingly good the last couple of weeks. We've had some really good races. There's been a lot of tire wear, tire degradation, and that's what the fans want. We want racing. We want some tire wear. So yeah, that was fun to watch, and obviously a lot of championship implications in F1 this weekend, and potentially someone playing third fiddle in this title fight. We'll see. But yeah, a lot of cover on today's podcast.
So yeah, I mean, you said that NASCAR has had some good races these past couple weeks. New Hampshire. Before we get into anything in specific, it was nice to see a good race again, right? The tires were not nearly as go away as they were at Bristol, right? But I don't think they needed to be. New Hampshire's always been a track that, given good enough tire wear, you can run in multiple different lanes. So like I think it was nice to see guys kind of come and go. I know there was always a couple cars that were fast all day, but generally throughout the field, a couple cars came and went, and people were kind of fast or slower at points in the race. So it was nice to see that, and especially in the middle of the field. Um, I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it was New Hampshire's very up and down. So I think it was very enjoyable to see a good race because there's been some races in very recent memory, especially with this next gen car, where you're not able to pass. But today we did see a lot of passing, and there was still a dominant line. Clearly, the outside was dominant. Some guys tried to go five wide on the restarts, but it didn't really pan out unless you were on the very high side. It definitely didn't
Yeah.
pan out for some people, which we'll get into. But so the top was, predominantly the preferred line, but you could make it work on the bottom. And actually, the top being as dominant as it was probably led to some pretty intense racing because it meant that if you wanted to pass someone, you probably had to rough them up. And we did see a lot of tempers flare, some between teammates.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of battling throughout the chunks of the field, right? Like there was battling at the front, there's some battling in the middle. I mean, people wrecking for seemingly last at one point in this race. So there was a bit of everything. We got to see a taste of racing on the high side. The low side did work when you ran it well enough, or on newer tires compared to other drivers. So it wasn't unusable, which was nice to see too. So it was kind of multi-groove. There was definitely a better lane, but you could definitely move around the track. Moving more into of what actually happened in the race, Ryan Blaney takes his third win of the season at New Hampshire, so he locks himself into the round of eight. No worries at the Charlotte Roval, no worries at Kansas this upcoming week. So Ryan Blaney is set and going to have another chance to race for a championship, assuming he can get through the round of eight. For the other 11 drivers, uh, some had good points days, some had bad points days. Who stuck out to you?
The biggest driver that I think there were two drivers that made there were two drivers that made really big swings. One good, one bad. Joey Logano was below the cut line coming into this race, and he had a great race. He had one of the best cars. He won a stage, got top two in every stage, and then of course in the final stage fell behind on some late race strategy. Ended up getting fourth, but they're still much further above the cut line, 24 points, I believe. So it was a big swing for them. On the other end of the spectrum, we see guys like Bubba Wallace who have been ahead of the cut line all throughout the playoffs. He might have been. Was he below the cut line coming into this race?
I think he was on it. I think he was like
Yeah,
on
he
it.
was right on there. But either way, we were not expecting to see him have as bad of a day as he had. He had the worst race he's had in months. Definitely the worst race since his Indy win. Just didn't have the speed all day. Ended up in a pretty bad 25th, 26th place finish. And now he's way below the cut line. So Bubba Wallace is going to have his work cut out for him. He does have Kansas coming up, which is a good track for him. But it's disappointing to see that all the momentum that he had going for him, just kind of didn't work out for him in New Hampshire. So those are the two main drivers that stood out to me in terms of a good flip to the cut line and a bad flip to the cut line.
It's interesting too because it's not like you could point out any driver error, especially from any of those drivers in the above or below the cut line right now. There was really nobody who made driver errors in New Hampshire. A lot of it was just whoever showed up and unloaded fast or slow. I mean, Penske was fast all weekend. Um, Chastain looked fast at points in the race. JGR obviously is always good here, and Hendrick was pretty solid. So 2311 was kind of just the weak link this weekend. It wasn't just Bubba Wallace. Tyler Reddick himself as well did not have a great race. He got stage points early, I believe, but that was about it. He ran 15th to 20th the rest of the race, never got back up through the field, and ended up finishing. I think he finished like 20th, maybe 19th. So he's also below the cut line, huh?
Yeah, not that high up.
So yeah, I mean, 2311 both sit below the cut line. Bubba 27, Reddick 23 below. Couple other drivers. I mentioned Chastain. He's 12 below. Austin Cindric, the other driver below, is I think 19. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's like about
So
20 points.
pretty.
I might be right on that. I don't know, but Cindric had a interesting race. He was kind of of the four. We're referring to Barry as Penske car, although he's technically not. Of those four guys under that camp, he was the slowest all race. He was the only one not up front at the end of the race. So a little bit of concerning speed lacking from the two car compared to his teammates, but yeah, I mean they're gonna have to pick it up at Kansas and the Charlotte Roval.
Yeah. I think it's a little concerning that you can understand that the 12 and the 22 having better pace, but the 21 being that fast, some would argue it was the best car at some points in the race. He just didn't have a chance to show it, with the early spin. But Cendric just couldn't get anything going. And at one point they tried an off strategy to get them track position, and I'm like, okay, this is where we're going to see if he really does have a good car. And he fell back. It didn't work out. Obviously, he was on older tires, but the quick cars could make old tires work. Look at Christopher Bell. He was out on old tires and sort of flipped his race from running in the teens to going up and getting a borderline top 5 finish. So if you had a quick car, track position didn't matter that much. You know what I mean? It's not like if you got trapped, you'd be stuck back there. Look at Josh Berry. He was able to fly up from the back to the
He got
front.
spun out. Like he
Yeah, he
was
got
down a
spun
set of
out.
tires at that.
He literally had to come from last to first. So it just didn't work out for Cendric. And, in a weekend where
Everybody.
Penske, yeah, and in a weekend where not only, no one has issues, but a weekend where Penske was really fast, you have to come in and deliver. And he did not.
I mean, yeah, Austin Cindric. We knew that it'd be a struggle in this round for him. These are not strong tracks for him necessarily. So he's gonna. We didn't want him to rely on the Roval, but already it's looking towards that direction. The other driver there's a couple other drivers that had notable races. We'll get to Denny Hamlin in a moment. Christopher Bell, you mentioned him. He had a solid ending to the race. Chase Briscoe kind of floated around the top 10-ish all day. He ended up with a top 10. I think he finished like 9th or 8th, so good for him. Chastain, I think he finished actually well, although he was up and down as well.
Yeah, he
Um,
got ninth.
yeah, so I mean, the last playoff driver I wanted to mention I'll go back to the winner in a second, but the last playoff driver I wanted to mention otherwise was Chase Elliott. Um, yeah, I mean, he wasn't slow. He actually was pretty fast this weekend. He unloaded pretty well. They didn't qualify great, but then the race they kind of picked it up. They had some pace, especially in the second half of the race. Older tires, they ended up keeping track position on that restart and never fell too far back. So a good thing for them, but still only 13 above, and I wouldn't feel comfortable with that with the inconsistencies that team has had.
Yeah. Driver I want to comment on would be William Byron, because I think of all the drivers that we think are pretty much looking like they're going to make the Final Four this year, Byron's one of the favorites. You know what I mean? But we need to see better performances out of him, because over the last couple months, it almost feels like they've taken their foot off the gas. They're just coasting, waiting till playoff time, and then now that we get to playoff time, it's like they've forgotten to wake up. But now, they had a great run at New Hampshire, got a third place finish. He looked really fast, and so it looks like the raw speed is starting to come back to that 24 team, and so I think they're in championship mode again.
Yeah, I think the 24 ran right. The 5 car, he was in the top 10 most of the day, so he was also not that bad
Oh yeah,
off.
he had a great run
He had a
at
he had
maybe
a
his worst non-super speedway. That
Yeah,
was impressive to
that
see.
was he
He
actually
needed
drove up
that.
and passed a couple of
Yeah,
cars and almost won the stage if I'm correct. So
yeah,
um
he had a really good car.
so Larson was able to do some stuff. But I did want to talk about the winner real quickly. Ryan Blaney managed to he actually drove he got set back if I remember right after his stage win. He ended up not winning stage two, but he got closer to the front of the field. And then eventually, on that long run before that later yellow, I don't know how late I don't remember how late it was. It was kind of late, but before that yellow, Blaney was able to drive up to and past Joey Logano on pace after working on it for like it felt like 25 laps. It was good racing though. Logano they weren't really taking each other's line away. It was just Blaney felt faster. Logano would move up, Blaney would move a little higher, or Blaney would try and cross down low. Logano would go low, Blaney go high. It was a nice race. It was nice to see the two guys battle it out cleanly. And then eventually in the end of the race, Josh Berry tried. He tried his hardest to get to that 12 car. But I honestly would like to say I think that's the lack of that. That's right. There's the difference between a Wood Brothers car and a Penske car. Barry asking a little extra of the car pushed it over a boundary that he just couldn't go over.
Yeah.
Blaney probably could have pushed that boundary and been okay. I think that's the difference in equipment. If anyone needs a visual, but yeah, it was overall a great race for them. Great to see Josh Berry have a nice weekend too. I wanted to mention that, especially after the just
Yeah.
miserable 3 weeks he had. Really not of his own fault for most of it, so it was nice to see that. And Blaney ends up coming out on top. As I said at the start of this, he goes to the round of 8.
Yep. I think it's anyone that's not a Penske fan has to be pretty worried right now because you don't want to see Penske firing on all cylinders when we get into the playoffs, and it's happening. I think the 22 still needs to find a little speed, but the 12 group is ready to go. I think if Phoenix was tomorrow, they would be the favorite. So they just got to keep doing what they're doing, and if they win in the round of 8, they'll find themselves in the final 4. The 22 team, they still need to find pace, which has just kind of been the story of their team the last couple of years. They just need to find pace.
I'm still
And then,
concerned at the mile and a halves, but
yeah, the mile and a half, they definitely don't have the pace. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. I don't know why they can't get fast race cars because at this point, it's not like they're tanking. This is the pace of the 22 car, and if they don't deliver a race winning car at Phoenix, which at this point it's not looking like they're going to be able to. I don't know. They're not going to be able to win the title, obviously. And then Cendric, of course, is in even deeper water. He is just, he's never been a title contender. I don't think this is the year that he's going to make that step up. But if they are going to take that drastic step, they need to find a lot more speed. But yeah, things are looking good for Penske as a whole. I think a lot of people are going to be worried about them. But yeah, that's about it for, in terms of the good of the playoff drivers. But there's some bad. When you look at the Joe Gibbs Racing camp, there's a point in the middle of the race where you had Ty Gibbs and Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin, all Joe Gibbs teammates, all racing around each other, and all of them in the playoffs except for Ty Gibbs. But Ty Gibbs was racing Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin very hard. He wasn't dooring them. He wasn't, putting them in the wall or anything, but he was racing them. Now, some think it was fair, some think it was foul, but what was the most controversial move was Denny Hamlin going up and then crashing Ty Gibbs for the racing that was, happening. Hamlin felt that Gibbs was holding him up, which he was. The 11 car was faster, the 20 car was faster, and Gibbs held up both of his teammates who were both in the playoffs, and Hamlin went up and wrecked him for it. So I'd say there's going to be a lot of differing takes on that particular incident.
I'll say I I saw what Denny said on Actions Regimental. I wanted to kind of come on here
I
and
have
not
not seen that.
I don't want to quote it for verbatim. If you want to see it for verbatim, you should look it up. But generally, he says, I don't know why he's blocking so hard for his against his championship caliber teammates and contending teammates. His name's on the building. That's basically what he said. Um, and I mean, I'll give my opinion first. I think the incident itself is getting a little blown out of proportion. I think NBC or NASCAR, whatever. I think they were dragging that a little bit because I don't think it's actually as severe as they're making it. I know everyone wants to be like, oh, well, how is this going to affect Hamlin at Gibbs or Bell at Gibbs and whatever the case is. I don't think it'll change. I think Joe Gibbs
No.
is a competitor. I think he's going to let his drivers fight it out. If he thinks that unless he thinks that Hamlin did something objectively wrong, which I don't think he does, what are you going to do? They settled it on the racetrack, right? Gibbs was blocking Hamlin for position. Hamlin didn't like it, and he's like, all right, if you're going to block me, I'm going to move you. And he moved him, and he wrecked. I don't think his intention was to wreck him. I think his intention was just to move him up, honestly. Um,
Come on.
I no,
Let's be real.
I honestly think he was just trying to move him up, like move him up. I don't think it would have been clean. I think he was definitely trying to get him up close to the wall, but I don't think he was trying to wreck him. I do think he was just trying to move him out of the way so that him and Bell could go by. But I don't know. That's my opinion on that. I don't think it's actually as serious though as people are making it. I don't think it'll have any long-lasting impact.
Yeah, it's so yeah, now my opinion, I don't think it's gonna have any long-term effects. Like Hamlet's not gonna lose his ride at Joe Gibbs for this. But I will say I do
Ben Rhodes to the
disagree.
11.
What?
So Ben Rhodes to the 11. Push my new agenda. No, yeah, yeah.
Or a Ben Kennedy to the 11.
Ooh, that'd be a tough one.
Let's just
Yeah,
take the most like a random bro. Ben Rhodes, get this guy out of
yeah.
here.
But continue in here.
Take this man out of the chat. All right. Anyway, so I do disagree with you on some fronts because I think a lot of people are also blowing out of proportion how hard the 54 was racing. Now, if someone can find onboard video of Gibbs blocking Hamlin, or I've seen some people say he was dooring Bell, but I saw the incident with Bell, and they were coming up off turn 4 3 wide. Gibbs in the middle, Bell on the inside. Gibbs was pretty far ahead of Bell. Bell was to his quarter panel, and Bell slid up off the bottom, hit Gibbs, and so then down the straightaway, Gibbs gave him a little door back. It wasn't anything major. They both got away fine. I think Gibbs got hit and he wasn't happy about it, so he hit Bell back. Both of them got away, cleanly with all fenders on, no tire rubs. It was just, harmless, little, hey, why'd you hit me? Oh, I'm sorry about that. We'll move on. And then with Gibbs and Hamlin, I saw Hamlin drive up to the back of Gibbs, and Gibbs was just minding his own business on the top. He was riding the top was pretty fast all day, as we mentioned. He was just riding the preferred lane. Hamlin couldn't get by him on the bottom. Now again, if someone could find onboard of Gibbs,
There was
blocking
there was an
Hamlin.
onboard actually. I saw. I think it was. I don't remember if it was on Instagram or Twitter. I did see an onboard of this. Hamlin went to go. So they were going into 3 and 4. Gibbs is like in the second-ish, third-ish lane. Hamlin goes, a lane higher, trying to get on his outside corner panel, and so he drives in deep, but Gibbs moves up and blocks. So Hamlin has to get out of the throttle even more. So then Gibbs comes like he basically was like this and then turned up. You could see his car literally just do this. So
Yeah, I would like to see that angle, but I think I
I'll have to show you
think
after the show.
yeah. So I think I don't like to see Hamlin wreck Ty Gibbs for that because now I haven't seen the video. If it looks like Ty Gibbs pretty much chop blocked Hamlin and made Hamlin break to miss him, then I could see the side of Hamlin, but um, he was incredibly frustrated. You don't see him that mad on the radio often, which really surprised me. You shouldn't be letting a non-playoff driver
You're a
get you
teammate.
that frustrated, especially a teammate. And then he went in and crashed Ty Gibbs. Now the part that I disagree with you on the most is I think he definitely meant to wreck him. I think getting in someone's left rear at a flat track is pretty much where there's no banking to kind of lean on. I think Hamlin knew it was going to spin Gibbs out. I think he had full intentions of crashing the 54, which I don't agree with. I didn't agree with it at the time. Now hearing that maybe Gibbs chop blocked Hamlin, maybe there is some merit to it, but you should be allowed to race. You shouldn't have to just bend over and let the guy pass. It's not like Gibbs was
Off the pace.
yeah, it's not like Gibbs was off the pace. They're just racing hard. And the argument that I really don't like, this is the one that was the most confusing. Steve Letarte is a very smart guy he's one of my favorite guys in the industry, but he had a take that I really didn't agree with, and it was if they were racing for fourth or fifth, I would have agreed with it. But racing for 11th, I don't see it. What?
Why does the
Dude,
position
I don't.
matter?
Yeah, that doesn't like it matters a little bit,
If it's for
but
the win, that's
11th.
one thing. But like we're not.
Yeah, it matters a little bit, but like if you're an 11th, he's talking like if you're running 11th, your race is already done. Like 11th is not 35th. 11th is a good position. You can turn your race around from that. Blaney was in 11th. Barry was in 11th. Logano was never 11th, but like a lot of the guys that finished up high were back in the teens at some point in the race. Just because you're 11th doesn't mean your race is over. So I didn't understand that. It was hard racing to me. And Hamlin didn't like it, so he wrecked Gibbs. So I don't agree with it from Hamlin. I would be very interested to see if you swapped the role of Denny Hamlin to an unlikable driver, or at least to see what
Or
the other side of the coin
or
would say.
swap Gibbs and Hamlin, see what that goes like. I'm curious. I am curious on that too. I'm curious
Maybe.
because if Hamlin blocks Gibbs and then Gibbs just ships him, they're gonna be like, oh well, why just ship him? He's a playoff driver. That's the thing. That's where I'm interested
Yeah,
in that argument.
or we switch Gibbs. Let's say Chase Briscoe wasn't in the playoffs. Let's put Briscoe in the 54 because then you have because Gibbs is an unlikable driver. But now let's say you take just a neutral driver like Chase Briscoe. Are people going to be as hard on the 19 or the
I don't even know if
54?
I'd say unlikable. It's just he has a reputation. Ty Gibbs
Yeah,
has
I mean
a
he's pretty. I mean, not a lot of other people like him.
there. He's polarizing. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
He's polarizing. He's got a lot of people who like him, a lot of people who don't like him. So if you put someone who is generally neutral or liked upon, yes, maybe that would be a different result. We'll ultimately never know. We'll ultimately, hopefully, never know. I don't want to see our teammates going out and wrecking each other. Um, my final take on it is I don't think Hamlin meant to wreck him. I really do think he just meant to move him all the way up the track. But I mean, I'm not Denny Hamlin and I'm not Ty Gibbs, so Lord knows what the conversation was after the race.
I don't know.
Um,
And I will say that Denny's not new to intentionally wrecking people or putting him in the wall. He's had no problem doing it in recent
he
years.
has done it, so I
So
wouldn't put it past him, but I don't
yeah,
expect that of him.
yeah,
I don't expect it. Um, moving forward here, we look ahead to Kansas, which is coming up this weekend. I want to hit on this. It's the first time you won't be at Kansas as a fan in
I
what,
know.
10
Yeah,
years? It's fall race?
I know. I feel left out. I've been literally been going to Kansas for 10 years. This is gonna be my first year not going, because it's college and all that. But once I get out, you better believe I'll be back. It's kind of sad because with the next gen being so good at Kansas, I want to go to as many Kansas
You're
races as I
gonna go
can.
and experience it, you
Yeah.
know?
Unfortunately, I'm going to miss it this year, but who knows about going in the future. But yeah, super excited for this race at Kansas. Kansas is, I think we can all agree, pretty much the best track of the next gen right now.
One of, yeah, generally.
Well, yeah, one of the best. So I think we're in for a very fun race and gonna have some playoff implications to go with it as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of drivers in interesting situations. I'd like to hit on this statistic I looked up real quick before we went on the air here. Um, So entering this playoff race at Kansas, the average finishes of our 12 playoff drivers go as follows. Kyle Larson has the best average finish. He has a 6.29. His best finish is first. Hamlin at 8.29 also has the best finish at first. Bell at 9.57, Blaney 9.71, both inside the top 10. Second and third, their best finishes. Ross Chastain has a 10th place himself. He also won here last fall. And Chase Elliott, the last one in the top half, he has a 11.43. His best finish is also third place. As you look down to the second half of this, William Byron, he has a second place finish here. His average being 12.71. Joey Logano, 14.57. His best finish is fifth place, a top five of his own right. Bubba Wallace has won here a handful of years ago. His average finish being 16.29. Then a little further down the bottom three here, Chase Briscoe and Tyler Reddick both at a 19.57. Reddick has won here. Briscoe's best is fourth. And then far and away behind the other drivers, Austin Cindric, 23.86, and has not had a top 10 at Kansas ever in his career
Yeah.
in the Cup Series. So, with all that being said, what thoughts, what anticipations do you have going into Kansas for drivers?
So I think this shows kind of what we all feel, that Kyle Larson and Danny Hamlin are the two best drivers at Kansas. But when you look at the guys who are below the cut line, besides Chastain, it's not like any of them are really fantastic at Kansas. Now I'm pretty surprised at how low Bubba Wallace's average finish
I
is.
I will say that does tank because he had multiple races get kind of spoiled from mechanical problems there. I'm sure if you take those out, his average is much
Some
better.
pit road issues. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can think of a few, but so yeah, it's the drivers below the cut line are not necessarily the ones who are historically good at Kansas in the next gen. As we see, the guys below the cut line are fifth, which is good, but then ninth, 11th, and 12th. So it's not like there's necessarily a guy below the cut line that can look at Kansas as like, oh, we can go win this race and get us over. They would all like to think that, but statistics would say it's going to be harder for them. But I will say the 2311 drivers have shown some fantastic flashes at Kansas.
They've all won there.
Recently, yeah, exactly. Recently, they've kind of fallen off a little bit, but the flashes have been there. So there's got to be some hope, some excitement there, because now both of them need big runs to get into the next round. And I do think that they should have a pretty solid weekend. Bubba Wallace really needs it. As we talked about before, I don't know if there's a driver that has more on the line right now, reputation wise, than Bubba Wallace, because this needs to be the year that he makes a step. So, and with how good his year has been, you'd hate to see him out in the second round. So he needs to have a really good run this weekend.
I think if I'm Bubba Wallace in 2311, actually, I'm not even gonna say it for Bubba. If I'm 2311, right, you can't rely on the roval. That was,
No,
I don't want to say embarrassing, but that was rough. It was hard to watch New Hampshire as a 2311 fan.
I
You
would
don't
say
want to
it's
see that.
embarrassing.
You don't want to go out there, have one of your cars running a lap down 25th and the other car barely in the top 20. And at a track that one of them is historically pretty good at, and the other one it runs really solid there in his own right himself. So it's just uncharacteristic, and that's not the round of 12 is not the time to make these mistakes where you're costing yourself races that have no implications. We talked about it with Cindric earlier. This race had no drivers make any real faults or problems, and nobody had any issues. So you mean this again a race that you need to be able to perform? They didn't perform. So now you go to Kansas, which has been a wild card in recent years. It can create some drama. It has done that for playoff drivers before. I think back to 2017 when Matt Kenseth, he had too many men over the wall after a crash championship season that he could have had because he won at Phoenix, ended right there on the spot. So
Sixth man over the wall cost him
that's
his whole season. That's crazy.
so things have happened at Kansas, and we saw Chastain as a non-playoff driver 1 year last year. So non-playoff drivers can go and win this race. It's happened. Bubba Wallace did it even himself a couple of years ago. So like, it's happened. Um, you don't want to put your eggs in the basket of Kansas, but if they can have clean days and run in the top 5 or even just top 10 in Reddick's case, I think they'll be at least close enough to make it a race at Charlotte Oval. You just don't want to enter more than 10 points behind when you go to that race.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you mentioned non-playoff drivers, because if you look at the Kansas fall races, more non-playoff drivers than playoff drivers have won. 22, we saw Bubba Wallace. 23, actually, Eric Jones almost won that race as a non-playoff driver. If you remember, he was
I
out
do.
on old tires at the end, but he and Logano got in a fight, and Reddick took advantage. And then, of course, last year we saw Chastain win. So if there's any week that the bettors want to bet on a non-playoff driver winning, who knows? Maybe Kansas is your best bet. But yeah, non-playoff driver winning would shake it up, because I think a win would be, obviously you want to win, but I think now more than ever a win is so huge, because if you look at the 8 drivers that are above the cut line,
They're
all
all
of them
good.
are so solid. Yeah, like you can't count on Chase Briscoe running 20th at the Roval and then you're in. No, you're going to need to be on your best. It's not like, you know, no disrespect, but like if we had SVG above the cut line right now, you could say, okay, maybe we can, we still have some leeway because there's someone above the cut line that we feel we can pass. But right now, there is none of those drivers. These 8 are going to be very solid. So, winning would be the best way to ensure yourself to get in and not even have to worry about outpointing them, which would be very tough at this point.
I think the what I want to say on this is that when Chase Briscoe was in the playoffs a couple of years ago at Stewart Haas the first time, right? He ran terrible, like terrible, and every round it felt like, right? Felt like every race he was just skating by, skating by. You don't want to be that guy because Chase Briscoe is not that untalented. Let's be real here. He is very talented.
Very talented. I
So,
think, yeah, a lot of people forget how good he was in Xfinity.
so
Fantastic. Great
you
race car
don't
driver.
you don't want to be the guy just getting points because people are making mess ups. You can't rely on it. And in a round of 16 that didn't have much chaos, meaning most of the drivers who advanced have been the top 12 drivers all season generally, this is why you have to perform. You can't have bad days. You can have a bad day. You mentioned you can have a bad day when a guy who's 20 something in points is bound to have an off day because they're bound to have one. They've been running mid all season. You're not getting that out of a guy who's 7th in points. That's not common. You need to lock in, for lack of
Yeah,
better wording.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, enough on speculation. What are your predictions? What do you need to see out of certain drivers this weekend, aside from 2311, as we already touched on?
All right. So, as for my prediction, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I do think Kyle Larson is going to win this race. I think they have some momentum building up. I think, obviously, as we looked at earlier, he has the best average finish at Kansas in the next gen race car. So he is very fantastic here. And the stat that we have talked about before, and we're going to talk about a lot, is if you want to win a championship, you have to win in the playoffs before the championship race, unless you're Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is the only guy that's won a championship, with that being the only race in the playoffs he's won. So if Kyle Larson wants to be a championship contender, he needs to win in these playoffs. I think this weekend, I think he's going to get it done. He's very good at Kansas. The momentum's starting to build up there a little bit. I like what I see out of the 5 team. As for some things I need to see, I think of all the 4 drivers below the cut line, I do think Tyler Reddick has the best chance of winning this weekend. I could see 2311 bringing a great package to this race, and both he and Bubba are quick. This year, Bubba's been better lately, but I just trust Reddick a little more. It's, again, the reason I didn't have Bubba advancing. As much as I hate to say it, I still don't trust him. He's been great the last couple months. He's had a career year, and I love the guy. I want to see him succeed. I just have such a hard time believing it. It's kind of like um, I was gonna go off topic and get on and do another sport, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. It's kind of like the Vikings last year in the NFL. You just have a hard time trusting someone that you haven't seen succeed before. So I trust Reddick a little more than Bubba. As for Cendric and Chastain, who are also below the cut line, they both need to have great runs. Chastain's a little closer to pointing his way in. He's only 12 below. Cendric's 19 below. So of the 4 below, that they're most likely right now to point their way in. But they need to have 2 great runs if they want to make it.
All right, so I'll give you my race winning prediction. I think I'm going to shock you here, actually. I don't think you're expecting this. Um, when I make this prediction, we talked about it how non-playoff drivers win in these Kansas races. Um, it's more common than not. Also, what has been a common trend in the past handful of races is Legacy Motor Club's been really fast,
Oh my
and it is a
gosh!
Toyota track.
Let's go!
Kansas has been very friendly to Toyotas. I'm not predicting which of them will win because I think if I pick one, the other wins, and I don't want to be completely wrong. But I am gonna take an LMC car here. I think one of those cars is headed to victory lane. I think it just feels like a right weekend. They've ran well at Kansas in the fall before. You mentioned it with Eric Jones. They have been getting better each week in and week out every week. New Hampshire's not a strong track for them. I know it was a rough weekend, but generally they've been getting better each and each week. And again, Toyota, good track at Kansas. So I think all of it meshes together well for them. As for playoff drivers, what I need to see happen, what I think will happen, I don't think we're going to have anybody new above the cut line after this race. I think we'll have the same 8 above. What I think will end up happening is that Bubba will get closer, Reddick will get closer, Cindric will fall a little further away. I think Chastain's going to be right about 5 to 10 points within Chase Elliott. I think Chase Elliott will lose some points to the cut line. Not because I don't think Chase Elliott's good enough at Kansas, but dude, that 9 team just looks so. Something's off. I don't know what it is. Even when they run well, something just like doesn't
Yeah,
feel right.
something's been off for years at that team.
So I don't know what it is, and I actually, believe it or not, I said this, it's a whole off-season thing I'll say, but in short, I need Chase Elliott to be the villain again in my sport because I enjoyed rooting against Chase Elliott. Right now, I don't feel that. I just feel sad watching him race
Yeah.
sometimes. But yeah, I think Chase Elliott will be the guy above the cut line. I think the other guy that'll be close to the cut line. I actually don't have faith in William Byron this weekend. I know that team was fast in New Hampshire, but he's actually, if you look at it, been inconsistent at Kansas, especially in the fall. So I actually think he'll be a little closer to the cut line than people want to give it credit for, but he'll probably be about 20 or so points above. So no, ultimately not terribly bad. But yeah, those are my predictions and my thoughts. Do you have anything else on Kansas before we move on here?
Yeah, you mentioned Chase Elliott. The best way I could describe what's happening is they went to sleep in the summer of 2022, waiting to hibernate and wake up for the playoffs. Obviously, as we know, they never ended up waking up for the playoffs, and they haven't woken up since. It's been a 3-year-long hibernation for the 9 team. And so the question is, are they ever going to wake up? Are we going to see prime Chase Elliott return? We've seen some flashes of it because he's been very consistent. We just haven't seen that winning pace yet. But, this playoff could be a chance for him to turn it around. But I'm kind of in agreement with you. I don't see it happening. Hendrick as a whole, they're a little off right now. We saw Bowman get eliminated. Obviously, Elliott's been off. Byron had a good run in New Hampshire, but like you said, they've been inconsistent at Kansas in the past. So besides Kyle Larson, I think it's going to be a struggling weekend for them.
I think I could see it go either way. Like, I mean, they've all ran well at Kansas before. Bowman's had a near-winning race car. Byron nearly won here last year. Elliott's nearly won here in the spring. They've all had winning race cars at Kansas. I just wouldn't predict that. So that is why I have it going the way I do.
I will say that's my favorite pick that we're ever going to do. You pick an LMC to win.
I think it's fun.
They're so good at Kansas.
And it's fun.
Aaron Jones is amazing there.
It's a great it's a realistic enough pick. Like, it's not something I didn't just say Cody Ware is going to go win. I said no, it's an LMC car that's been running well. They're both in the top 25 in points, which I don't think anyone's talking about. They were both outside the top 30 at one point. They clawed their way up.
Yeah, Jones is way up there. He's got to be like 17th or 18th by now, right?
No, Jones is 21st. I think John Hunter's 23rd, or something like that.
Just lie to the viewers and say he's 17th.
I don't want to spread misinformation. They're like in that 20 to 25 range, but they were up in the top 20 at one point. They just had a bad race weekend at
I remember Jones was up there. Yeah. That's kind of what I was still thinking, but I guess it's small.
They're in a battle with like guys from like 17, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I think I'll go with an LMC car, and if it's not, I'm still going with a Toyota that's not a playoff driver. I actually think Ty Gibbs would win if it's not either of them. So they've
been really good lately as well. They've had some speed.
So there we go with that. Apparently, though, my thoughts on drivers have not been very correct based on what we saw in F1. Maybe they are right. Maybe it was a fluke weekend.
You had so many people attack you.
We had a lot of people. I got a lot of people talking. F1 went to Azerbaijan for their Grand Prix weekend. Max Verstappen came out with the win. I did tell you that I didn't think a McLaren was going to win. I think I did tell you Verstappen was going to win, didn't I? No? What did I say?
I'm pretty sure you had Norris winning.
Did I have Norris winning?
I think so.
Maybe I
had
did.
Norris. You had Norris first, Verstappen second.
Oh, I might have had. Okay, I had Verstappen on the podium. I know. My apologies.
No, you had him third, either second or third.
I definitely had the McLarens 1-2 if I had Norris winning. I definitely had that happening.
Yeah.
So then
Norris, Piastri, Verstappen was yours, and then mine was Piastri, Norris, Leclerc. We got pretty much all of it.
I was the only one any close to right.
Yeah, you had at least Verstappen on the podium. No McLarens in sight, no Ferraris in sight. Wow, what a crazy weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, it is a crazy weekend. I mean, to be fair to us, we couldn't have predicted I don't even know what to call qualifying. The qualifying that's longer than the longest race this season, I think it was, or something like that, or longest race at Baku.
It was long, whatever it was.
It was like an hour something long qualifying. It was extremely long time. But yeah, we couldn't have predicted that, obviously. But otherwise, I don't know. A lot happened in qualifying. A lot happened in the race. We saw the podium ended up being Verstappen, Russell, and Sainz gets that's Williams' first podium in how long? 2017, right?
Yeah, with Lance Stroll
with Stroll at this track. So that checks out.
You know who did see it coming? Daddy 9244. He saw this one coming. He knew Carlos. He knew his boy Carlos Sainz was going to get a podium.
We knew that one. But I don't know. It was a fun weekend. I was glad to see Russell and Verstappen up at the front of the field. I actually am interested because I feel like Red Bull as a team is closer. Like they're not close, but Verstappen as himself is close to where Mercedes is. Like, that's a pretty even battle, I feel like, if that makes sense. So it was fun to see that. Verstappen ended up walking off with the win anyway. I think the main point of conversation, though, has to be the McLarens, right? Because, especially Piastri, just what happened?
Yeah, so, off the start, he jumped the start, actually. Went before the lights. I believe the anti-stall kicked in for him. And so he ended up having a dreadful start, ended up falling to last place. And then I think he went into a little bit of a sunk cost fallacy where he's pushing really hard because he's like, I've lost all these spots. I gotta push hard while I'm at it. Um, I don't even think that wouldn't be the sunk cost fallacy, but he
I get
was
what you
pushing
mean.
too hard to make it up, and so
Overcompensation.
yeah, it's overcompensation. He made up a couple spots off the start, and then he tried to do too much. He tried to get a third car on the outside at a corner where we don't see any passing. And it was the first lap of the race, so there's almost no one's been up there. No one was up there that day. Probably throughout the weekend, there's very few people that high. He went up to the outside to make a pass on a slower car. Didn't work out. Locked up, lost control of the car, slammed the barriers, and his day was over. The last episode, we were talking about how Piastri has been mistake free and is in the
Wow,
mentally correct state
we
to win
spoke it
this
wrong.
title. That was one of the worst mental collapses I've seen out of a driver in championship contention. I mean, first he jumps the start, puts in an anti-stall, then he has his first driver error in almost 2 years. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't well driver error that causes him to retire from the race. I
Yeah, I'm
should
gonna say
say.
first time he hasn't finished a race. It's what 2024 or 2023 Brazil, right, or something like
Yeah,
that.
a long time. So it's remarkable that we see that. When we were just talking about him being so mistake free. In some ways, maybe he was due for a mistake, and we should have seen it coming. But still, huge mental collapse, and it could have been a lot worse
No.
if Lando Norris put together a weekend. But
Yeah.
he didn't put together anything either. He only came home in seventh. So really, they almost drew even. Norris gains in a little bit, but not as much as he could have. It's a lost opportunity for both drivers coming out of the weekends.
Yeah, Piastri exits with a 25-point lead, meaning, I mean, if Norris wins and gets max points and Piastri doesn't score, Norris still is only tied with Piastri after Singapore, which is the next race, but that's not for a couple weeks. Um, yeah, I mean, Piastri, we talked about it, uncharacteristic mistake, and that scares me a little bit actually. I know people are gonna be like, oh, well, it's just one mistake. Yeah, that's a big mistake to make. Like that's not like, oh, I was slow off pit road and I tried to make a move and I got sideways and spun. Like no, he like jumped the start because he was antsy because he had to make up spots, and then after he put it in anti-stall and he tries to make up all the ground, he's trying to make up too much at once, and then just wrecked the car. When I think the best example is this. Think of Lewis Hamilton in Monza in 2020, right? He had to pick off every car one by one as he was going through the field, right? Or we could do Max Verstappen at Belgium a couple of years ago. Fastest car, by far fastest car. He slowly making his way through the field. He wasn't trying to make up 7 spots in the first lap of him getting off the grid, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
just that's the championship mentality of a driver that you see. Not, oh shoot, I made a mistake. I need to immediately make it all back up. And it happens in every form of motorsports, even in just in sports in general. You make a big mistake and instinctively you want to do something immediately to make it back up. But typically it's not made back up just in the snap of a finger. You have to build it up over time, and we saw what happens when you try and do it all at once with Piastri right there. And
Yeah.
Norris not capitalizing speaks more to me about him than I thought it was going to, because you'd think at least he'd get on the podium, right? Make up a chunk of points. He didn't do that. He didn't even get close. He was nowhere near the podium, and the podium had a Williams on it. And no disrespect to the Williams, they're not McLaren. They're not close to McLaren. Nobody on that grid is close to McLaren. So I was astonished to see that he only got 6 points out of this weekend. He finished behind a Racing Bull, a Williams,
That's what I was about to say.
yeah,
And the second Red Bull.
and the second Red Bull. So like it was just it's not uncharacteristic from Norris, but it's a bad weekend to not be on your A game. Bad weekend.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, like what you were saying with Piastri, we've seen Verstappen and Hamilton pull off some great drives. One of my favorites was when, hey, this is a good comparison because this was when Hamilton was in a championship battle. You think back to Silverstone 2018 when he was spun out by Kimi on lap one. Everyone instantly thought Lewis's race was over. Vettel's about to have a huge title lead. Hamilton came back and almost beat Vettel at the end of the race. So it's that championship mindset of when you get spun or you have a bad start or just things don't go your way and you need to make up spots, you can't over push it. Piastri has the quickest car on the grid. Maybe not at Baku, but it's the quickest car. He should know that if he just keeps his car on the road after through the first few turns, he will have a competitive car the rest of the race and can pick the drivers off throughout the rest of the race. But that's not what he did. He tried to get 3 positions in 3 turns, and it didn't work out for him. And then Lando Norris not being able to capitalize. McLaren just didn't seem to have very good race pace this weekend. I was disappointed by what I saw out of McLaren. I was disappointed by what I saw out of Ferrari. I don't think either of them had anywhere near the pace to challenge, obviously, Max or Russell at the front. They couldn't even challenge, a Williams or or the second Red Bull seat or a Racing Bull. So this is a huge if McLaren continue to struggle and maybe their car is not as dominant anymore, could we see a resurgence out of Max Verstappen in this title fight, even though he's over 70 points behind? And it would be one of the biggest championship comebacks we've seen in F1 history, maybe the biggest. I'd have to do some more research and digging. Do you think it's possible?
I will say yes. You know why? Because think of last year. Norris was in the exact same spot Verstappen is. Obviously, there's an extra car now, but same exact position, right? Verstappen was way out in front of McLaren and Norris, but Norris had the better car. Now, the one difference is Red Bull is certainly not the better car than McLaren, but Verstappen is the better driver. I think everybody will admit that, right? So instead of better car versus better driver, better car trying to catch better driver, it's better driver trying to catch better car. I think that's an interesting narrative. I don't think he gets there, if you want my honest prediction, but it will be close, because if these two continue to have scraps on the track and make these errors, and I am jumping the gun on this Piastri thing just because that is again, it's not like a simple mistake that he made. That's a big mistake. So if these errors keep happening and Verstappen just keeps surviving and doing what he's been doing the past couple weeks, he's gonna get there. And let's be real, he faces the least pressure of anybody on the grid. Anybody. He is, besides maybe Fernando Alonso, who hasn't been in a position to compete for anything in 15 years, he faces the least pressure of anybody on the grid. He doesn't feel it. So I think that it's worth noting that if he can get there, I think he would be the significant favorite.
All right.
But that's an
so I have a take. Yeah, I have a take on the Max Verstappen thing. I could get clipped to oblivion with what I'm about to say. In every Max Verstappen edit you're ever going to see over the next 20 years, this might be in it. Max Verstappen has no chance of coming back in this title fight. I just don't see it. The car is not good enough. It's just not. He's a great driver, but that McLaren is a monster, and I just don't think it's possible. We've talked about the statistics. Even if Max Verstappen wins every single race and every single sprint, there's still a scenario he loses the championship. So for me, these odds are just too much to come back from. So I don't think it's even possible. I don't see it happening.
I'm not going to give my thoughts on Singapore because that's a week and a half out or so. But what I will say is this. If he can survive Singapore, because that has always been Max's Achilles, right? Never won Singapore. He almost never runs well there, right? It's the whole joke that Max is beatable at Singapore. If he can at least finish second, and I know it sounds crazy because well, the McLaren might win. No, if he can finish second, and he beats both McLarens, I think this championship is more than on, because that is his worst track. I think if you give him a car good enough with the problems McLaren are facing right now, he can go win the championship. He just has to survive Singapore. He cannot have an issue there, and he can't be off the podium. If that is the case, I am all but ears, because there's 8 races left after Singapore, or 7 races after Singapore. So it's doable. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It is not an easy task, but it's doable. And I think for the best driver in F1, we talked about it last week, if there's anybody that can prove how to overcome these hurdles, it is what you would consider the best driver in Formula One.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can agree to disagree on that, but I'm just saying I think it's doable. It's not impossible.
All right. I think it's impossible, but
you're gonna get clipped. You're gonna get clipped.
Max Verstappen fans clippable content.
You're gonna get clipped because
I'm gonna get clipped so hard. Dude.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for you because this is what I'm saying. if you're the best driver in your sport, and it's not just not even best driver, if you're the best athlete in your sport, you overcome hurdles. Again, you talked about the Vikings comparison earlier. Look at
You're not about
Patrick.
to do the 28-3, are you?
I'm not actually. I'm actually gonna compare Patrick Mahomes to this, and I'm gonna get clipped to Colin Cowherd or whatever.
Chris
But
Collinsworth
Chris
type
Collinsworth, sorry,
plays.
yeah, same thing. But Mahomes played from, oh my God, he played down in the 2019 playoffs, not the Super Bowl, but every other game. He was significantly down in those games at halftime. Not like in the first quarter, like at halftime he was down. Made comebacks, all of them. That's the championship mentality. You can go to any sport. I can go to when LeBron was down 3-1 in the NBA Finals 10 years ago. I could go into NASCAR. I can go into multiple instances where a driver, the best driver, arguably the best player, was down and they came back, and even with the odds stacked against them because they weren't in the favorable situation, they made the comeback because they were the best. Is Max Verstappen going to prove to be as talented as touted? Because he's always had the best car when he's won the championship. This would be a defining performance if he can do that. Because what volumes does that speak to him as an overall? When you talk all-time lists and you talk Hamilton, you talk Schumacher, you might have to throw Verstappen in that conversation if he can make this championship comeback. Because this is an incredible comeback if he can perform it off.
I think he's already in there. I would already put him in there.
I'm not saying that's
Maybe not in terms of accomplishments, but raw speed. I would
on
put him
raw
in
speed, yes, but he'll have the full argument if he can complete this because that's 5 championships, which is tied for the second most, or well, I guess third most, however you want to rank it, but ties him with 5, with Fangio. Um, so if he can do that, and he's younger than all of them when he hits these stats, he's the first to do all of he's the youngest to do all these things. So I think he puts himself into another breed of conversation if he can pull it off, which I think is why it's important for Max himself, especially in a year where Red Bull is just out of it.
Yeah, it's just
It seems far-fetched, but it's not when you look at the mistakes McLaren's making.
I don't know. It would be really tough. If Verstappen wins this championship, it would almost say more about the choke job because it would mean McLaren completely chokes. As we talked about earlier, even if Verstappen wins every race and sprint, there's still a world he doesn't win it. So it's not just going to be on the shoulders of Max Verstappen. It's also going to be on the shoulders of McLaren to deliver a good car, and more than anything, Piastri and Norris to keep their heads on, which can they do it? Neither have been in a very strong title fight. The largest F1 championship comeback I can think of off the top of my head would be Vettel coming back from around 40 points behind Alonso to win the 2012 title, but that was at the summer break. They still had 10 races to go.
They also they had less races or so. So
yeah, but
it's about the same. About the same.
They had more races to go at that point and less of a deficit for Vettel to make up. This is almost twice the deficit and less races. I think it's.
This could also speak.
It's gonna be very hard.
I was gonna say this could also speak values to the people who aren't as high on Vettel. If Verstappen could do this, that would say another thing. There's just many conversations that can be stemmed from Verstappen completing this. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't think it'll happen. I don't want to sound like Verstappen's gonna go win the title. That's not my pick, but he can put himself in position to do so. So I think it was worth mentioning and having a discussion about.
What's in position? Within a race of points in the finale?
I think if he can get himself within 18 points. I don't want to say 25 because I feel like him having to win would at Abu Dhabi with the McLaren would be pretty difficult. But
hey, you never know. What if it's a 3-way title and Piastri and Norris crash each other?
Do you want to see a 3-way tie title fight?
That would.
You want to see a winner take all part 2, and do you want to have Colapinto bin it into the barriers, and then we get a 1 lap of racing part 2, but there's 3 cars this time.
I just had some insane PTSD.
And then the McLarens crash each other.
Dude, last week you got tore up by the Carlos Sainz fans. Now the Hamilton fans are gonna come after you.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get.
And they are harsh.
On that
as a Hamilton fan.
On that fable yellow that shouldn't have been called. Whatever you can guys come at me. I think that title was. I think there was a lose-lose situation no matter how the FIA handled that, but that's a different discussion for another day.
All right, buddy.
I think it's a different discussion. We'll talk about that another day.
Let's discuss it. Why not?
No, 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 no. I insist. We'll come back to
Doesn't
this another
answer
day.
it. Come
No,
on.
no, no. I insist. Do you have any other closing thoughts here before we kind of send them off?
No, that's about it for me. I think, we're going cup racing at Kansas this weekend. We don't have F1 this weekend. So, we can't really comment on what's going to happen there. We have a couple weeks till Singapore. Singapore's going to be a big race for Verstappen, historically very bad there. So he would like to come through and get a good finish. And then looking at Kansas, I hope we're in for a good race. The next gen car has really been good the last few weeks, and I would like to see that continue going into one of its strongest racetracks. So yeah, I hope we're in for a fun weekend of racing, and I think we are.
Close us out here, I'd like to also mention that I want to shout out TJ Lair or Tyler Lair, however. TJ, our friend,
Yes,
he puts us on his race cars. He's our iRacing driver friend here. Um, he had a couple good races going in a row there. He had a accident at Bristol, I remember. I didn't get to see New Hampshire yet, so I don't know how that went. But everyone should
that
go
was
check him out.
he should have won New
You
Hampshire.
guys should go check that out and support him. He does a great job with what he does. So wanted to make sure I gave him some shout out for that. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us on this edition of Sideline to Speedway. Next time we are on Motorsports Edition, we'll be talking what happened at Kansas, looking ahead to the cutoff at the Charlotte Roval, and I believe we'll actually be looking into Singapore more. So thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you guys.